All right, Kevin. So it's great to have you back. I appreciate you coming on. We've had a lot of updates since the last time we've had a conversation. And for those of you that don't know Kevin, it's Kevin Trudeau. He has created a massive group of businesses, and he's generated over a few $1 billion in revenue.
Well, it's estimated around 25 billion in today's dollars. Yeah.
Wow. And had a book that was a New York Times bestseller, did around 50 million sales.
Well, I've had 6 New York Times bestsellers. My biggest book was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list 26 weeks in a row. That sold over 50 million copies alone, and all my books have sold over 100 million copies.
Wow. It's impressive. And what was your journey to get there? What were some of the core things that drove you there? What were some of the ideas that, helped you get off and get started in that direction?
Well, a lot of people, are out there looking for success, especially if you're in your 20s or, early 20s, maybe. It's like you're driven. Like, I want fancy cars. I want Rolex watches. I want nice clothes. Well, maybe today, not so much nice clothes, but, but, they're looking for big houses. They were looking for travel. They want to party. They want to have a good time. They want to have a lot of spending money. They want to make money. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of people in their 20s, more people today in their 20s and 30s that are making millions of dollars a year than ever before in history. Even when you go back to Prohibition, when all the gangsters were in their 20s making millions of dollars a year. And even then, compared to today, we have a higher percentage of people that are youthful making huge amounts of money, because today the opportunities to make money, whether it's in cryptocurrency, online marketing, or a whole host of other things, is unprecedented because of the internet. So when I was in my 20s, I wanted to make money too, but this is before the internet. I'm an old guy, right? So this is before the internet, before cell phones, before computers. How do you make money? It was a different dynamic back then. So I learned how to virtually think and grow rich, because that was the name of a book by Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich, how to use your mind to virtually manifest. That's the new buzzword today. They didn't use it back then. Manifest your desires. Back then it was how to set and achieve goals.
Okay.
Today it's how to manifest your desires. And back then, Think and Grow Rich didn't use the word the law of attraction, which was popularized with the book The Secret. But that's what it was all about. And the Think and Grow Rich book that Napoleon Hill wrote was the success system used by the richest people on the planet at that time, at the turn of the century. Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Firestone, all these titans of industry. They all used their mind to virtually create their wealth. Thus the name of the book, Think and Grow Rich. Well, I learned that, and I also learned it in an organization I was a part of called the Brotherhood, which was kind of a secret society. And I learned how to use my mind. Now, I never went to college. I virtually almost flunked out of high school. My dad was a welder, so I had no connections and I had no money. But by using the techniques of the mind, today we'll call it the law of attraction, but using it properly allowed me to create massive amounts of wealth. Before I was 20 years old, I had made millions and millions of dollars and had developed residual income that was just out of control and off the charts. And I made money in the automobile business, mining operations in Australia, telemarketing, teleservices, publishing, manufacturing. I own 3 TV networks in Europe, the Golf Channel, Shop America, which was second to QVC as a shopping channel in the UK. And also UTV, which was a entertainment channel. I co-hosted the Debbie and Kevin show, and it was one of the top-rated shows in the UK at the time, as well as a radio show before podcasts. We actually had radio shows back then. So I got involved in a host of different industries and made huge amounts of money. Back in the 90s, I was called the TV infomercial king, direct marketing expert. Wall Street Journal called me the master of modern day marketing, America's marketing guru, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, great. That led me to then get bombarded with people all over the world saying, how are you doing this? You don't get loans, you don't get financing, nobody's bankrolling you, you have no connections, you have no education. How are you making these billions of dollars from nothing? Creating companies and creating this massive amounts of wealth. And how are you teaching these other people to become multimillionaires? I was known as the millionaire maker, because everybody who came to me, even though they were broke and just starting off in their 20s, within a few years, many of them were making millions of dollars. Like, how are you making all these millionaires? And I explained it's by using the mind properly. It's the missing secrets to the law of attraction. It's the missing ingredients to a success formula that people are trying to apply, but they're missing it. They don't have the right ingredients to the recipe. There's some missing ingredients. Yeah. And people would always say, Kevin, you need to teach a course or write a book on this success method. Look, I'm not a motivational speaker. You know, Tony Robbins and all these other guys, and Tony's fantastic. He does a phenomenal job, but their business is selling books and selling seminars on how to become successful. Yeah. That's their business. My business was actually real business, you know, making real money in real businesses around the world. I wasn't in the motivational or inspirational business or seminar business or I'm going to teach seminars on how to make money business. I actually was in business making money. Well, people hammered me long enough and I finally did it. I said, okay, I'm going to charge 50 grand. We'll see who's serious. This is 25 years ago.
Wow.
50 grand to see who's serious. I went to the Alps and I did a 2-day seminar. And I had friends of mine, members of royal families. I had many billionaires there as evidence that the system works, kind of co-teaching, if you will. And we taught 100 people that paid 50 grand at a very opulent place the secrets of how to use the mind, the formula. Many people call it the success formula that never fails. It's really just an algorithm. It's a mathematical equation on how to become successful. And if you look at the equation, it's mathematical. There's 40 points to it. If you go, oh, I'm weak here, well, that's why you're not manifesting or creating the amount of money you want, okay, or manifesting or creating your goals and dreams or attaining your goals and dreams. So if you correct that, now the formula works. So I taught this for 2 days. We recorded it. And then I sold the CD set for $1,000. This was back in, again, 25 years ago. Yeah. It's like $5 grand today. And people all over the world purchased it. And today we have over 100,000 5-star reviews from people that say this was life-changing. It made all the difference. You know, I read all the books on success. I read Think and Grow Rich. I read The Secret. I read all the books by Tony Robbins or Bob Proctor or Joe Dispenza. Nothing worked for me. I read yours, or I went through that audio series, and now I found the missing elements. You basically put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and then it worked. And so that's where we are today. So now, you know, I'm semi-retired. You know, I had businesses all over the world, and I still have companies today. I'm launching another company that's probably going to go public with probably $1 billion valuation in the health and nutrition field. But I just came out with the book version of that seminar, which we call Your Wish is Your Command. Okay. And it's available now. People can buy it, and this is it right here, yeah. which you've seen. It's really being called the Think and Grow Rich of our time, and it's the reviews we're getting are really spectacular.
Yeah, and I've read it, and I'll share some of my experience with it. And one thing I want to go back to that I think is incredible is you talked about the Brotherhood, and you talked about, you know, most people in the world today can't say, like, my friends, you know, I brought billionaires in, multiple, right, to a conference, or I did anything as proof that the system worked. And, you know, just kind of referencing it, I would imagine those friends came from the Brotherhood or something like that.
Correct.
Like, explain the Brotherhood and what is that exactly?
Well, people have heard of secret societies, and even conspiracy theorists or people that are not conspiracy theorists know that secret societies exist. And look, they're not so secret. President Bush, both of them, were members of Skull and Bones. Secretary of State John Kerry, member of Skull and Bones. CIA directors, member of Skull and Bones, which is Yale University. And there's no secret that Skull and Bones exists. They have an island, they have meetings, they have a building at Yale University. And President Bush in his memoirs says, when I went to Yale, I was tapped on the shoulder and inducted into a secret society called Skull and Bones. A society so secret, that's all I can say about it. So we know it exists, but what we don't know is what goes on behind closed doors.
Okay.
And these societies, whether it's Skull and Bones or Bohemian Grove, again, it's a place. Ronald Reagan's been there. Presidents have been there. Henry Kissinger's been there. I've been there. They exist. They're not mythical like the Illuminati. You know. Yeah. I mean, these secret societies are really just associations of men and women that get together, they kind of pledge an allegiance, if you will, and they help each other out. You know, they share information, kind of behind the scenes information. You could call it insider information, and they plan and organize and work with politicians, business officials, leader of the World Bank, IMF, and so forth, so that the world goes in a certain way to financially benefit them.
Okay.
I mean, that's at the end of the day how it works. There's one society which is really unknown. It's called the Brotherhood, and it's the kind of the top of the food chain. And that's what I was a member of, which is why I was one of the only people who was not a member of Skull and Bones to go to Skull and Bones Island. And I was in the Bilderberg meetings many, many times, and also Bohemian Grove. So as a member of the Brotherhood, which Henry Kissinger was a friend of mine, was a member, President Gorbachev, General Norman Schwarzkopf, we were all members, and many, many other people that most people don't know, but control most of the money.
Okay.
Now, for example, you have sovereign wealth funds that are worth trillions of dollars. Norway has $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, who runs it? You don't know. Nobody knows. Well, that guy's in the Brotherhood. He controls $2 trillion.
Got it.
Think about it. Then you have other sovereign wealth funds. Saudi Arabia, 1.8 trillion. Well, who controls that? Well, it's a member of the Saudi family who's in the Brotherhood. So they're controlling huge amounts of money, but you don't see them. And then you have all these people that are not on the Forbes 400 list. So they're not listed as the 400 richest people in the world, but they're richer than most of the people on the Forbes 400 list. But you don't know they exist because their money is not public. Two guys we just arrested in the last 6 months in Asia. One in his crypto wallet had $12 billion.
Wow.
$12 billion in Bitcoin in just one crypto wallet that they found.
Wow.
Well, he should be on the Forbes 400 list,
Yeah.
but he's not because nobody knows he exists. There are 1,000 of those guys that I know of, and many of them are in our organization. They have so much wealth and control so much money and wield so much power that it's beyond people's imagination. So in our group, we teach each other, and I was sent into royal families' palaces around the world to teach the families how to use the mind to create what you want, to set a goal and achieve it. Or in today's vernacular, manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. So I was teaching them one of those techniques, which is not taught in any book on success because nobody who writes books on success knows.
Yeah.
They're guessing, is your brain has to broadcast your goal or desire on a frequency that mimics the earth, this plane of existence. And that is right in between alpha and theta.
Okay.
Those are the brainwave frequencies. If you broadcast a frequency there with a desire, it actually moves material in the physical universe and thus activates the infamous law of attraction. And then it starts to attract or create or manifest in your life. If you're broadcasting on beta, which is a brainwave, that's really called the slave wave. You're not going to manifest or create anything, which is why people read books on the law of attraction and they think they're applying everything right. And they're going, how come it's not working for me? Well, it doesn't work for 90% of the people. And they don't know why. Well,
Yeah.
I'm telling you why, because they're broadcasting on beta, which is the slave or poverty wave, instead of broadcasting on that wealth wave, which is right in between theta and alpha. So if you broadcast on that wave, then you can actually move matter in the universe and attract it. Now, this, by the way, is not science fiction. It has been proven today that your brain is a broadcaster as well as a receiver of frequency. That's proven. It's also been proven by modern science that everything in the physical universe vibrates at a frequency. And it's also been proven that with your thoughts, you can change the vibration of physical matter. And this is all mainstream science. This is what we learned, what I learned decades ago, which back then it was foo-foo and mainstream science didn't even believe it existed, and what's been taught in the Brotherhood for hundreds of years. And this is why wealthy people create wealth seemingly out of nothing.
It's funny that you say that. So when I started off like learning about manifesting or making that come true and everything, I grew up with a Christian background, and there's very much like there's not a whole lot of room for what people would consider mystical. And I considered manifesting mystical, right? And then I started to meet people, read books like The Field by Lynn McTaggart, and they put these quantifiable scientific proof behind it where it's, people are changing how it vibrates. And I met a guy who ran one of the coordinate remote viewing programs at the CIA, and he was explaining how the way that, like, if you manifest on the right wave, right, or if you think about things on the right wave, you basically shape, like, the world's considered of infinite possibilities, right? And you start to bring these possibilities into this field of vibration, right? Or you start to bring it into a reality. And when you start to put all these things, like you said, this ethereal process isn't really that abstract anymore. It's pretty concrete. It's a process that's backed by science. It's proven by a formula. There's people that know about it, and there's people like yourself who've been able to achieve it. But even like the people, I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this have heard of like the programs or, the binaural beats or the things that will, help just get your mind into that. Like, what do you think about those?
I was in Southern California at a private retreat. I go there several times a year. There's 35 guys. The collective net worth of those 35 guys is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. These are super wealthy guys. And I can't mention their name, but you would know them. They are the top of the top. And I asked them, does anyone here meditate? No. Does anybody here put headphones on and listen to these binaural beats? They laughed. What the hell is that? Does anybody here burn incense in their house? What? Does anybody wear a packet of salt around their neck? And the reason why I'm saying these are things that people are promoting that are supposed to bring prosperity in your life and make you wealthy. Well, if it's true, how come not one wealthy person does any of it? They don't do any of that.
Right.
And I'm not saying none of those things are helpful. What I'm saying is the wealthy people don't do it. I've never done it. But the guys who are making billions of dollars, they don't do it. What do they do? There's a real specific thing. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary on Netflix. He says exactly what he did. He put a picture of what he wanted on the wall next to his bed in Austria, which was a bodybuilder winning the title. That's what he wanted. He looked at that picture every night. He closed his eyes, he said, and he saw a picture of himself on stage winning Mr. Olympia and the title. And he saw the audience cheering, and he felt as if it was real. That's what Arnold Schwarzenegger did. That's what he did. He put out that frequency on the wealth wave or the manifesting wave, and then he went to work. He actually woke up early, took his protein shake, went into the gym, and started focusing right now, today, on the next logical step.
Yep.
So there's a series of things that he did. And there was one thing he did, which is not written in any book, anywhere, on success. And that is he found out what he hated. He focused first on what he did not want. And he really contracted energy and developed a lot of pain. He said, I looked at my town and I was disgusted with it. This beautiful town in Austria, by the way. And he said, I could not live here anymore. I had to leave. I had to go to America. This was too confining for me. And when he describes it, you can feel the pain. It's like, this is something I am not going to take or tolerate anymore. And unless you have that, you won't be motivated to take action and do what needs to be done so that you can achieve your goals, dreams, and desires. The idea that people sit around and meditate and go, I'm just going to think about what I want and the universe is going to attract it into my life and manifest. Welcome to Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist. That's BS. It's BS. You look at any person who's wealthy and say, did you work 2 hours a week? They'll look at you and go, are you insane? Are you like the town idiot? I mean, are you a dunce? I woke up early. I worked my ass off 12, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. Oh, I thought the universe was just going to manifest magically what you want when you put out in your desire. I read The Secret. That's all you have to do is think about what you want, and it'll just manifest. No, when you think about what you want, you get motivated and inspired to take action.
Yeah.
And you don't work. You love what you're doing. And therefore, the action then creates results. Action combined with the right attitude creates results. Action with the wrong attitude doesn't create any results. So you have to combine the two. The action follows and comes after your thinking process is correct. And that's when the action will produce results.
Got it. That makes sense. And I mean, a lot of people, like at the end of the day, right? People just want to get what they want. And I think people, you can label it manifesting. But at the end of the day, like most of the people that are listening to this want to get their goals, dreams, and desires as fast as they can with the least amount of work as possible, right? And I would say you kind of just explained the work, how it becomes a passion. It's something that you enjoy, right? It stops having that negative energy that people would associate. And like because I know the things that after, going through the process, reading the book and seeing the transformation in my life, I know the 3 things that I was like hung up on, and it was probably the blocks or the stopping points or the speed bumps that made me getting that outcome really challenging. But if you were to distill it down to like 3 of the biggest things that people are facing each time they try to manifest or they try to like activate their dreams, goals, and desires, what would you say those 3 things are?
Well, number one, people don't know what they want.
Okay.
People watching think they have a goal or a dream. They don't. So if I would ask somebody, and I do this all the time, I say, what's your name? Boom, they tell me their name. What's your address? They tell me their address. What's your phone number? They tell me their phone number. What do you want? Well, why do you have to think about it?
Yeah.
Why do you have to think about it? That's the problem. A, you don't have a specific, quantifiable, measurable end result that you are trying to attain. That's a magnificent obsession. If you get that, then you'll get it. You can't hit a target that you don't have. Most people don't know exactly what they want. They have some vague, well, I want more money. You're never going to have more money. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Give me a number. What number do you want? Tell me exactly what you want, and you need to have a magnificent obsession to get it. Most people, A, don't know what they want. And number 2, it ain't written down.
Okay.
They don't have a written down, quantifiable objective. Every wealthy person writes down what they want in specificity. They know exactly what they want. Andrew Carnegie said, I want to be the largest steel producer in the world. He knew exactly what he wanted. And every time he was asked in an interview, it was without hesitation, because that was his magnificent obsession. That's what he wanted. So you have to know what you want. You have to have a quantifiable, specific, clearly defined dream. This isn't new, by the way.
Yeah.
You look at Think and Grow Rich. What did Napoleon Hill say? The secret formula for success is define your dream. Define clearly what you want. And then have a magnificent obsession for its attainment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, so you were just saying, you wake up, you do the work, you go, which makes it sound like maybe what people would consider less about manifesting and more about just achieving their goals, right? And it's interesting because, like, from my experience, and like I said, after reading the book, going through the process, my 3 big things were I was attached to the outcome, right? I didn't believe that I could have it, or I'd set the goal too big. And then the third one was, you talk about, basically empty words, how you can say something and you say it with just your throat versus you just saying it with your brain, mind, saying it with your heart, and then saying it, from kind of your stomach area, right? Those 3 things, when I started doing that, it was kind of like the missing piece to my formula. And yeah, I was working hard towards it, but things were happening even over and above that. Like, I was having people come into my life that there was no reason I would have met them. There was no, like, if you look on a mathematical probability, there was no probability I would meet them, or, we would close the sale, or something, incredible would happen. And it wasn't, so like I could work and work and work, but that work wasn't driving, like, those key levers or those key relationships or sales took it exponentially further, right? What would you how would you kind of correlate those two between, like, you get up and you do what you need to do versus, like, here's an algorithm that actually changes the way you get the outcome because it does reduce the workload?
Right. So there are 40 points in the creation algorithm, or the prosperity algorithm, or the success algorithm, or the money algorithm, whatever you want to call it. There are 40 points here. And again, it is an algebraic equation. It's a formula. It's number-based. And you mentioned some of the points that are in that. Mm-hmm. If you ask 100 people, and I look at 100 people to fill out this equation, everyone has different points that they're weak on. Okay. One person, they don't say the right words. they're saying, I knew that wouldn't work out. I'm just unlucky. So they actually are programming themselves for failure with their words. So they have to correct that. That's one of the key points of the algorithm. Another person, that they're attached to the particular outcome, where they think about what they want. They feel now as if they were in attainment of it, but then they feel horrible because they don't have it. So throughout the day, instead of feeling good, they feel like crap. They are putting out this vibration of lack and this vibration of fear and anxiety that they're not going to attain their goal, which is preventing them from manifesting or creating their goal. And even if they do effort, they put forth 14 hours a day of work, it doesn't produce any results. So there's a whole host of these. Another one is counterintention that's in your subconscious, below your level of consciousness. Scientists now have proven, and we talked about this for decades, but science has finally now proven it to be true, that if you have somebody in your ancestors, one of your ancestors, father, mother, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandmother, and they had a trauma, and they actually made a postulate, they made a decision, that's in your DNA. That trauma is actually in your DNA vibrating a counterintention to what you want. So let's say that you're trying to make a lot of money today, but maybe one of your ancestors or several of them were very religious, and they were taught that money is the root of all evil. It's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. The poor will inherit the earth. And they've been trained that money is bad. Having money is bad. Having money is terrible. It's of the devil. Well, that's in your DNA.
Yeah.
So you're out there trying to make money, and you get this counterintention going right against you that says, no, you don't want to make money. It's of the devil. It's terrible. You're not going to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Or money doesn't grow on trees. We're not rich. We're not going to make a lot of money. It's hard to make money. Maybe all that programming is in your DNA or in your own memories. Maybe you were told that when you were a kid. So you have these counterintentions that need to be transmuted and blown out and cleared. Unless you clear them, you can't make money, which is why people that come from a wealthy family, they don't have as many of those counterintentions, because their father and great-grandfather are going, this family is a wealth-creating family. It's in our blood. Well, that's in your DNA. So you're going to try to make money, and you get this vibration you don't even know exists that says, I'm a wealth creation machine. It's in my DNA. And then you go out there and start making money, and the universe starts producing all these events, circumstances, conditions, situations, people, and situations that are serendipitous or coincidental, which help you make money.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time. So there are 40 elements that I talk about in the Your Wish is Your Command book, that if you just follow each one of these and get better at where you're at right now, the good news, you don't have to be perfect. It's going to be easy for you to manifest or create or attract what you want in your life. And for most people, that's money or some material thing or success to some degree. But it could be better health. It could be a better relationship. It could be just, I want to feel better. I want to have more self-confidence. There's a lot of people out there that are hoping, and their goal is, I wish I was a more confident person. I wish I was a better communicator. Okay, other people, I wish I was a better lover. I wish I was a better, more attractive to men or women. I wish I was in a loving relationship. Or I wish I had more status in my community. I wish I was respected. So sometimes it's just not money that people are desiring or craving. It could be something. You can manifest, or you can create, or you can have, or you can be virtually anything that you desire within reason, as long as you can have confidence that you can actually achieve it. Napoleon Hill said it best. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can achieve.
Okay.
So the three elements there, but the two major one is, what can you conceive in your mind? What do you want? I can see myself living in a mansion or driving a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Rolls Royce or wearing a Rolex watch or having a private jet. Can you conceive that? Yes. Now, can you believe that you will actually have that? No. You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So there's a technique that I talk about in Your Wish is Your Command of how to bridge that gap. Not just imagine something, but increase your level of belief or increase your level of confidence that you can achieve it. That's when it happens. There was a an artist back in the 50s and 60s, very famous, named Liberace. You familiar with Liberace?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
most people, I don't know if they are. But he was a piano player. He had a TV show in black and white. He was the first guy to actually look into the camera on a TV show. Because back then, everybody looked at the studio audience.
Got it.
And he said, there's more people watching at home than in the studio audience. So he turned to the camera and he says, if you're watching at home, and he would talk to the camera, and the producers went insane because it was live TV.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and they went crazy. And he became the most successful, well-known entertainer in the world, Liberace. He held up a book on one of his shows, and he said, as you know, many years ago, I was unknown. Nobody knew who I was. And today I've achieved this amazing level of success, which I'm very humbled and grateful for. And I claim that it is because I read this book. And he holds it up, The Magic of Believing. That's by Claude Bristol.
Yeah.
This is written in 1959, I think it was. This book taught him, and many other celebrities have said that that was a book that changed their life, taught him that you have to believe in your dream and believe in yourself, which means you have to have confidence that what you want is going to happen. That's easier said than done.
For sure.
That book talks about why you should do that, but not how to do it.
Yeah.
My book, Your Wish is Your Command, tells you how to get that confidence when doubt will always start creeping in. Self-doubt, because people have inferiority complexes. People have self-doubt. They have a poor self-image. They think, I'm just not that smart. I'm a loser. Nothing goes my way. I'm always unlucky. Things never turn out for me. I mean, people have this poor image of themselves, which is dramatically adversely affecting their ability to create the life that they want or attain the things that they desire. Once you learn how to change that, even to a small degree, all of a sudden, you start getting some wins in life. You get the raise. You meet a girl or a guy, and you start getting into a relationship. You start feeling better about yourself. All of a sudden, some serendipitous thing happens where all of a sudden you meet somebody and you're in this place, and a guy gives you a business card, or you're invited. You win a little contest, and all of a sudden things start happening, and you start this momentum cycle. Success builds confidence, and then confidence creates activity, and activity creates success habits, which create success, which build confidence, and then you have this momentum cycle.
Yeah. I remember you talking about the momentum cycle, and it was interesting because I think a huge value to people writing things down. I'm going to ask you about writing it down on your phone versus on paper, because I know like a lot of people, like I had I had vision boards for years, 5-10 years, and everything was electronic, right? And then going through the book, you talk about the paper with the blue ink, which we'll talk about in a second, but that momentum cycle and compounding that, if you don't write things down, right? And you tell people like early on in the book, you're like, you have them do the exercise. There's an exercise in there that says, hey, write these things down. And then I want you to revisit it weekly, right? So I wrote it down the first time and I start revisiting it weekly. And, in the beginning, I didn't believe that I had the ability to like manifest things, right? And then week by week, you start going through and you start checking more things off. And I was like, okay, it's kind of interesting. This is serendipitous, right? Like it wasn't maybe a focal point. Like it was something that I really desired and really wanted, but, maybe I didn't have that attachment to the outcome. And then it was funny because the things that I really held strong, I had deep attachment to. So I started playing with that. And when I would write things down, I would pick the things that I wanted, but then I would just, I would kind of release the attachment in the same way that all the things that were coming true, right? But I think a big thing is like when you have the cycle of that gratitude and you start going back and you're looking at it and you're saying each week, oh man, I actually achieved this. And then those start to compound. When you start to set the bigger goals, your believability is higher, right? And you're like, man, I can do this, right? I can start to achieve these things. But yeah, so before we go down another rabbit hole, talk about like the writing on your phone versus, or doing something electronically, right? Building a vision board electronically or writing a goal down versus like your method, which may seem inconvenient to people, but really comes.
It's not my method. It's the method.
The method.
It's not mine. It's the method. This first started, there was a story about Harvard University graduates. The graduates were asked, how many here have a specific goal or goals that you want to attain in the next 10 to 20 years when you graduate. And a certain percentage said, 70% said, yes, we have specific goals and dreams. Good. How many have them written down? 3% of the class had their goals and dreams that they wanted to attain in their life for the next 10 or 20 years written down. Only 3% had them written down on a piece of paper. This is before computers. This is back in the 60s. 15 years later, the class was brought in. The 3% that had their goals written down had achieved more wealth than the other 97% combined.
Wow.
And they had achieved everything that they written down, with rare exception. Writing things down is mystical and magical, but there's science behind it. Here's why. When you think a thought, it's in your field. Science knows this. It's there as a wave of energy.
Okay.
An electron is a wave, but when it's observed, it becomes a particle. Mm-hmm. So you think a thought, I want to make $100,000. I want to make $1 million a year. I want to make $5 million. I want to have $10 million in the bank. I want a Lamborghini. So you think a thought. It's a wave of energy. When you look at it and see a picture of it, it stops being a wave and becomes a particle because you've observed it.
Okay.
And then when you write it down on a piece of paper, ideally white paper with a pen with blue ink because there's energy in the color contrast to the brain, you transfer what's in the ether into the physical universe. Here's the analogy. If you look up in the sky and you see some clouds and you go, oh, it's an eagle. Within a second, the eagle's gone because the clouds move.
Yeah.
When you think a thought, oh, I want a Lamborghini, it's gone, just like the cloud. Unless you capture it and write it down on a piece of paper, you don't transfer what's in the ether into the physical universe. When you transfer it to the physical universe, it becomes now physical. It becomes real. Writing it down. Why is writing it down on paper better than if you type it into your phone or electronic device? When you write, and think of something that nobody does today, cursive writing, which is Palmer penmanship, right? When you write cursive, there are thousands of neurotransmitters firing off in your brain, and thousands of neural pathways because of the movements of your hand. So therefore, when you write down what you want, the impression that it's making in your brain is in thousands of locations.
Okay.
When you type, there are less than 2 dozen.
Really?
Yeah, because there's only 2 dozen movements.
Interesting.
And if you use your thumbs and do this, there's 2.
It's even less.
Exactly. So when you type, and I know this all the time because I'm yelling at all my staff when they put everything into a computer and I ask them a question and they don't know the answer.
Yeah.
They have to look into the computer. And I go, I know the answer. How is it that I know the answer of what's going on in your division? And that's all you think about. I got 500 other companies and divisions that I'm thinking about. How come I can remember and you can't? Because I wrote it down and you didn't. You typed it into a computer. And then you just copied and pasted and copied and pasted and copied and pasted. I write things down 20 different times. I'm cleaning up my list all the time and writing it down. That's how you make an impression in the brain. You become what you think about most of the time. You get what you think about most of the time. Listen, knowledge is power, but only if it's used. And it can only be used if it's remembered.
Yeah.
If you don't have it at your mental fingertips, you're a moron. True. You're going to be useless. If you don't have the data at your mental fingertips, you are useless. If you have to continue to look it up in your computer or your phone, you are helpless and you are powerless. But if you have data at your mental fingertips, you are powerful. You have all these weapons right there that you can go, bang, bang, bang. You have it all. But if you can't recall it, you are completely helpless and powerless.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I mean, so that kind of leads into like, if most people, right, are struggling with this ability to manifest, if most people are running into a wall, maybe they're doing half the stuff. The problem that I see is they don't have like really the solution they need. The thing they need is this creation algorithm, right? This formula that's in the book. They need to be able to have like a genie at their disposal. And they don't have that. They don't know how to access it. They don't know how to rub the lamp. They don't know how to get their wish, right? What would you say is, I mean, aside from like taking the book and reading it, right? And I'll say, like, I've read a ton. I've read, The Magic of Believing, right? I've read I've read Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil, like all of these books that
Napoleon Hill stuff.
Yeah. Any of that.
Law of Attraction.
Law of Attraction, The Secret.
Esther Hicks, the Teachings of Abraham.
Yeah.
The Secret. There's a ton of them out there.
Gone through the platforms that, sell courses that are multi-million dollar platforms that just rake in revenue. But the thing that I thought was really interesting with you, and I've always been, I've talked to a lot of coaches or gurus or people in that space. And it's always interesting to me to see the outcomes that people who do that business as a business to make money, because it's very hard for somebody to relate to them. Right. And I know the biggest question that most people would be asking themselves is like, does this work for me? Like, how do I know that this works for me? And it's that bridge between like, you did this for brick and mortar business, or you did this for businesses, right? Service-based businesses, like things where you actually had to produce an outcome and make money.
Manufacturing, real businesses,
right?
Mining companies,
Yeah.
real companies.
They
did real business,
not just like teaching people how to do it.
Correct.
And I think when you look at people who are selling courses, right? They come at the market with this angle of, it's not your fault or whatever it is. And they have a marketing pitch to sell the mechanism. And a lot of times the product, the way that they can actually achieve the results is diluted to meet the messaging that sells. Yours isn't that way. Like, this is not this isn't a thin book, right? That's not, Magic of Believing, you can read in a day. Most of those books you can read in a day or two. But when I went through this, you didn't leave anything out. You didn't there was no dilution of the product to get the outcome. And I think that was one of the reasons that it was so effortless for me. I read it and then you start checking these things off and they all start coming true. So for people who, maybe think, I don't know if I have time for this, or if, maybe this isn't the way, or does this really work for me? Right? You've had hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, right, that have gone through this and have had amazing experiences. Share some of those testimonials or those insights, share some of those stories from the people who, were everyday people, people that might be watching this that are just struggling, that, it could be a single mom who is just looking for a raise. She doesn't understand how she's going to get the better life. She doesn't understand how she's going to get the better outcome, right? But you've had people who were in the same position that didn't understand how, but they still got it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because a lot of people always think, well, how am I going to make more money? I don't know how. Does this book teach me how to make more money? The answer is the how will present itself when your thinking and your vibrational frequency that you're putting out to the universe is correct. You have to put the vibrational frequency out first, then the how will present itself. It's similar to the person who says, well, I'll believe it when I see it. Mm-hmm. No, you'll see it when you believe it.
Okay.
You have to believe it first when it's not there. And this is a scriptural principle for the people who follow the Christian tradition. It says you have to have faith, and you have to walk by faith, not by sight. And it says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is knowing that something is off the radar screen, that you can't see, but it's still there.
Yeah.
That's what faith is. That's what belief is. That's what confidence is. And when you walk like that, that's when things magically occur. The how will always present itself. You look at a mansion, a $10 million mansion, when you're broke, and you think, I'm going to live in this someday. And somebody says, how are you going to make the money to do that? I don't know how. I just said, I'm going to live in this someday. I don't know how. When you get to that point where you have that faith and belief, I don't know how and I don't know when, and I feel good right now, the universe will present the how. It'll present circumstances, events, people, situations to give you what you want. Here's an example. I was the founder of the American Memory Institute, which was the largest memory training school in the world. We had seminars around the world teaching people how to improve their memory for both business and students to get better grades with less study time. I was going out there making presentations, talking about the benefits of a powerful memory. I was on all the TV talk shows, written up on all the newspapers. I would do all these memory demonstrations of what you can do with a powerful instant recall memory. And then I would tell people we have a seminar, a workshop, 3-day workshop. And then in most cases, I would teach the workshop, and I trained other people to do those presentations and other people to teach the workshop. But we were out there every single day working, making tons of money, driving fancy cars, Porsches and, Cadillacs, and we had Mercedes and Rolls Royces and Bentleys and all this stuff. Okay, great, perfect. Living in fancy places, driving, nice clothes, nice jewelry. We're making a lot of money. And I thought, I want not to have to work anymore. I want money coming into my account every week without me working for it. That's what I want. I want $100,000 a week coming in without me working for it. Now, the other part of my brain said, well, how are you going to do that? Mm-hmm. And I talked to myself and said, shut up. I don't know how. But I'm putting that out into the universe. I'll let the universe figure out the how. All I know is that's what I want. And I saw myself in possession of that, traveling to Europe, going anywhere I wanted, being on private jets, being on yachts, being, James Bond and this, footloose, fancy-free guy, this rich guy who doesn't have to work and has all this money coming in, doing whatever I want, anywhere I want. How cool a lifestyle. So I see this in my mind. 2 weeks later, I'm in New York City at the Carnegie Deli. I was having a Danny Rose sandwich, half corned beef, half pastrami on rye. And I'm sitting there. Right next to me, sitting where you are, eating with his lady friend, was a guy that I recognized from TV. And I said, hey, aren't you Bobby Singer, the blackjack expert? And he said, yeah. I said, I've seen you on TV infomercials selling the Bobby Singer method for blackjack. I bought it. And it's fantastic. And it was easy for me because I'm a memory expert. And he said, you're a what? I goes, I'm a memory expert. I teach people how to improve their memory. He goes, tell me about that. So I told him about it. And he said, you should be on TV selling a home study course on memory improvement. And I said, oh, no, that wouldn't work on TV. You have to sell a live seminar. You can't sell it on cassettes. No, that'll work. That'll work. And I'll pay for it all and give you a royalty. I says, no, you'd be wasting your money. I don't think that would be a good idea. I don't want you to lose money. Here's my business card. Let's talk. I'm going to send you a contract. I'm like scratching my head. I go back to my hotel. I was staying at the Plaza Hotel, Donald Trump's hotel. Mm-hmm. So I was staying in a big suite there. Went back, and this is before cell phones. This is back in 1988. And I called my answering machine. Remember back in those days, you had a little cassette answering machine. You had to call and punch in a code, and then you hear your messages. So I call my house answering machine, and there's a message. Kevin, it's Dr. Jawordi, your buddy. I'm in Lake Tahoe with your old friend Ed Beckley. He was asking about you. I told him what you're doing, and he says you should be selling that memory course on TV in a home study course on infomercials. And I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. 2 people in the same day are giving me this stupid, idiotic idea? This doesn't make any sense. So I hang up the phone, I call him up, and Ed gets on the phone. He says, man, we need to put this on a home study course and sell it on TV infomercials. You'd be great on TV. I go, no, I just met this guy, Bobby Singer. He said the same thing. He says, I know Bobby. He's a great guy. He said, but you should do the deal with me instead of him. I'll do a better job. I says, well, I'm going to call Bobby, let him know that we talked, and whoever sends the contract first, that's who I'll go with. But I think you guys are wasting your money. It's not going to work. So I call up Bobby, tell him. 2 days later, I get a Federal Express. Now, back then, nobody sent Federal Express because it cost too much. Mm. It had to be like a deed or some really important document. Like if you were to get a Federal Express, you're like, oh, a Federal Express. So I got a Federal Express in from Ed Beckley with a contract. I tweaked it a little bit, talked to him on the phone, signed it. A week later, I get a regular mail. In the regular mail, a contract from Bobby Singer. So I called him up and said, hey, Bobby, I already signed with Ed Beckley. He sent it Federal Express. And Bobby's like, damn, I missed out. Well, we did the infomercial. My first weekly check was $280,000.
Wow.
My first weekly royalty. We did $180 million in sales in the first 18 months with Mega Memory. Went on to do $450 million in sales. And guess what magically appeared? Something off my radar screen that I never even thought about. The universe presented it to me because I put out exactly what I wanted on the right frequency.
And I mean, like, so just as a comparison, what were you income-wise, 280,000 right the first week, what were you making prior to that? It's like,
I was making over $1 million a year.
Okay, so you were in a position, you were doing well, but that's still what?
I was doing really good, but I had to work for it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's $20,000 a week, right? So what's that? I mean, that's a healthy.
It's a 10 times.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's a 10x.
10x in 1 week.
It's a 10x.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I think it's, we've had, I was telling Dustin earlier, like things that have happened to me when I went through the Your Wish is Your Command audio of the Swiss Alps, right? I had a car, I had a truck, a Toyota Tundra. It's like, man, I really want to get a new car. I went through the process that you explained in there, listened to the whole thing through. I think one of the biggest things is like, when people get this, like, you want to read it, in my opinion, as fast as possible. You want to get through it because you'll start to see like everything, all the checkpoints. Well, you said there's 40 points in there. It doesn't feel like 40 points. It's not like you have to remember 90 things to do. It felt like there were 4, you drive home the big 4. Like,
yeah. And listen, at the end of the day, it's very simple. You read it. Mm-hmm. When you read a lot of other books on the law of attraction, you're reading stuff that's just regurgitated information.
Yeah.
Because look, I know these guys. And some of them are really great guys. But there's one fellow, I'm not going to mention his name, who was broke. He was actually bankrupt. And he called me and he said, I need help. I'm bankrupt. I'm trying to sell a course on how to manifest money, and I'm failing. Can you help me? I go, well, just use what you teach in the book. He wrote a book on how to manifest money, bankrupt, called me seeking help. And I said, just use the techniques that you wrote in the book. And he goes, I don't know. I need help. I need help. So I gave him a couple little bits of information. Okay, he manifested me as a friend. I gave him some information. And then he made $1 million selling a book on how to manifest money while he was in bankruptcy, living in the basement of his mother-in-law's house. Do you think that's going to help a lot of people? This guy doesn't know. He knows about it because he read a bunch of other books on manifesting money and then just regurgitated, but he doesn't know. Most people out there teaching the law of attraction, they know about it because they've read a bunch of books. Mm-hmm. That's it. Or they've been to some seminars and then they just regurgitate. This, I did not invent. I was taught everything in this book. I was taught it in the Brotherhood by people who are worth hundreds of billions of dollars. I was taught it, and all I'm doing is sharing what I was taught. So I don't know about this material. I know this material. I know it from personal experience. It's worked for me for decades and hundreds of other people that I've seen it work for as well. Mm. So there's a difference. I watch some podcasts, and I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to disparage anyone because their books and things are still good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but you have to read them with some discernment. Mm. There was one guy who's huge, and he was on a podcast. And the fellow asked him about, well, how does the mind work in relation to this? And the fellow goes, well, I think the way it works. And I said, time out. You think? You wrote about it in your book. How could you tell me you think? You don't know? So if you ask me how the mind works, I'm going to tell you exactly how it works because I can see it, number one. But I know the mechanics of the mind. I know exactly. I don't think anything. I don't have an opinion about anything. I'm telling you exactly how it is, which is why this is the success system that never fails. The only thing is you may not apply it properly.
Right.
If I give you the perfect recipe of a dish and you follow it, you'll get results. But here's the other thing about this. This is very unique. There was a woman named Julia Childs. Do you remember her, the French chef?
Yeah.
Okay. So Julia Childs was fanatical about producing a cookbook that actually would work in the kitchen of an American housewife.
Yeah.
So she produced a recipe. And everybody else would just write up a recipe, print it, and sell the cookbook. She did something different. She wrote up the recipe, and she took 3 housewives and said, here, follow the recipe and cook it, and I'm going to watch you. And nobody did it right. It wasn't that they were doing it wrong. Her instructions weren't good enough.
Right.
So one of the things was it says, saute some mushrooms. So the first woman takes some mushrooms, throws them in a pan, puts the cover on the pan. Well, that's steaming the mushrooms. And they weren't even sliced. And there was no butter in there. So she said, I have to redo this. So she gives detailed instructions. You want button mushrooms approximately 1 to 1.5 inch large. Slice them 4 times this way. And she actually had to tell you, don't slice them this way along the stem, but slice them the lengthwise. Then take a pan, put a ghee in, which is clarified butter, so it won't burn. Turn it up to medium-high heat. Wait for it to get hot. Otherwise, the butter is going to absorb into the mushroom. So she's given the instructions of why you're doing this and why you don't want to do it the other way. Only when it's hot, and you'll know by taking a drop of water, throwing it in, and then it'll bubble. Now, quickly put the mushrooms down using tongs, all down like little hamburger patties. Don't crowd the mushrooms. You need room between each one. Wait 1 minute and then turn them over with the tongs. If they're not fully brown, leave them for another 30 seconds. Then turn them over, wait 1.5 minutes. Now take them out and put them on a piece of paper to drain. And then repeat the process until you finish all the mushrooms. Nobody in America knew that was sauteing mushrooms.
Yeah.
But when you put that in your beef bourguignon, it tasted amazing. So this book does the same thing. I don't give you read it, you know.
Yeah.
There's no ambiguity here. I give you exactly the steps to take. There was a book, Psycho-Cybernetics, the original one. I think it was in 1959 by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. He talks about you have to have a strong, powerful image of yourself. He was the one who coined the phrase self-image. But he doesn't tell you how to do it.
No.
He just says you have to have a good self-image. I tell you in my self-image lessons exactly the steps to transform and create the image of yourself that you want. You want to be a powerful, confident person. You want to be a ladies' man. You want to be a man or woman that a member of the opposite sex is really attracted to. You want to be funny, charming. You want to be somebody that people that respect, that admire. You want to be a person who's wealthy, who's rich, who makes money easily and effortlessly, who's always happy, who's very lucky. Is that the type of person you want to be? Okay, here's how you create the image in your mind so that you actually broadcast that out into the universe with a certain frequency and vibration on that wealth wave or creation or manifesting wave. And then within days, weeks, months, maybe a year, all of a sudden you're that person. Yeah. And that's how it works.
It's funny because I always tell people when I'm teaching them something, I say, when anybody that works for me is teaching something that as much creativity, like or any outcome that you're trying to get that has creativity in it or abstractness has a very high probability of failure. The more you can turn that creative process that's abstract into a machine, then you get outcomes, right? With a factory, you know the inputs. You know that if you put X amount of inputs in, you get X amount of outputs in certain period of time. The success is there. But if you have something that's very creative or ethereal, or there's room for error, or trying to understand things that aren't explained very well, it's missing and you don't get the outcome. So you could write a book that's a quarter of that size and it would leave out all that and people wouldn't get the results that they wanted. Or like they could take the little bit of time when they look at the span of their life and they could read the book and read it again and read it again, right? And I mean, just keep reading it, right? And the ability that they would have to, to shortcut their outcomes, to get the things that they want, to reduce the friction and the workload that they have to do to get the outcomes, it becomes invaluable. And then, like I would say, and how I was introduced to you, right? It was a friend that I manifested. Didn't know him that long. He was great. He's a great guy. He introduced me to you, and it was funny because I didn't really understand the introduction, and then I got into your world, and that was 6 months ago or something, and then this was like the entry point. And whenever I tell somebody, I'm like, hey, if you're looking to get an outcome in life, if you're looking to make things easier on yourself, you don't need to go buy a course on how to do this in your business. You don't need to go buy a self-image book that's going to leave out a bunch of information. You should buy this book, because if this book is the container, right, it's the entry point into manifesting those goals. Then once you read this, sure, go read how to scale your business or how to make more money or how to do this startup. But without this and without the steps that come after this, like the self-image processes or money processes, or the things that you have down the line that people can work through, it's all of that becomes it's just worthless. It doesn't, or I mean, sure, there's some value there, but the amount of value once you correct these few foundational things changes everything.
Well, the thing that makes this book different than any other success book out there or book on manifesting or law of attraction or anything like that. This is step by step. It is sequential. It really is the most organized, step-by-step approach. It gives you the absolute detailed steps that you should take that will create results and help you manifest or attain your goals, dreams, and desires faster and easier than ever before, period. It is the success system that never fails. It's been used by the wealthiest people on the planet. We have over 100,000 five-star reviews, in effect, from around the world, from people who've used the technology and techniques and system in the Your Wish is Your Command program and book with spectacular results. Now, there's actually 3 ways a person gets the data. One is the physical book. And it's a physical book. It's a hardcover book. This isn't a print-on-demand gaff book. This is a real book. It's actually stitched. The amount of money we spent to get this stitched, this is going to last 100 years. The paper is the highest quality paper available in a book. This is gorgeous. It's a beautiful, beautiful binding and a beautiful book. Easy to read, well laid out. So reading the physical book allows you to write things in the margins, take notes, highlight. Having mass in your hand is critical. Then I went into the studio, and I didn't want to, but these guys over here forced me to. I didn't, because it takes a lot of time. And I read the book. So the audio version of the book, I actually read the whole thing.
Well, you didn't just read it.
I didn't just read it because I added commentary. So as I was reading it, if your desire is to pay off all your credit cards, and then I would stop and go, let me explain a little bit more about that. So I actually add huge amounts of commentary. So I read the book, so you know the exact voice inflection, so you know exactly what I was trying to write if you missed it when you read it. But I add commentary, and then I add a whole free chapter called the creation or prosperity or success algorithm. So I add that in as well in the audio version. Then the third way is for someone to listen to the original live seminar that I gave 25 years ago. We had the king there, we had other members of royal families there, we had several billionaires there, very prominent politicians and world leaders there, with 100 people that paid 50 grand. And that's a live recording. The energy of the live recording is vastly different than me in a studio reading it, and also the book. It's the original version. Now, the book has a lot more data because over the years, just like Julia Child, when she would give out the recipe and learn how to correct it, well, when I did the live event, people listened to it, and then I got questions. Well, if I got questions, and so some of them were common questions, that means I didn't explain something enough or clear enough in that live presentation. So that's why the book virtually leaves out nothing. So now the book, when you go through it, it fills in the blanks. But I would encourage somebody, if they really wanted to get the best value and become a magnificent manifester or be able to attain their goals and dreams with record speed and in record time, I would say read the book, listen to the audio version, me reading the book, and listen to the live seminar. And you can do it at the same time or, separately. But this way you're going to be hearing the same material using spaced repetition from a different angle. You're reading, which is one modality. You're listening to me read it, which is a second modality. Then you're hearing a live presentation, even though it's still audio. It's a different modality. So you're going to be getting it, and now it's virtually going to become a part of you, where you're going to not just know about the material, you're going to really know the material. It's going to be who you are, and you'll see results. You'll make more money, you'll get into the relationships you want, you'll manifest your goals and dreams faster and easier. And I think most importantly than anything is you'll feel better about yourself. The confidence you'll have, the sense of I'm powerful, I can achieve things, I'm a winner, which is going to make people just flock to you like bees on honey. People will like you more. You will win more friends and influence more people when you have that level of confidence after you go through the material.
Yeah, and I would say, the best part is they don't start seeing, I didn't start seeing results once I finished the book. I started seeing results in the process, right? A huge thing is if if people are going through a hard time, if they're struggling or they're depressed or they want to make a change, anything, they're going through conflict in their life, right? the biggest point you drive home, or one of the biggest that you drive home in the book, is to, to feel good now. And you don't do it in a way where it's like, hey, just go feel better now, figure it out. It's like, no, here's how you feel good now, and then here's how you can eliminate the negative experiences that you're having today so you can feel even better. And then it's like, once those things start coming, the doors open up, right?
And I'll give you a distinction about this, because the idea of feeling good is really misunderstood. I knew a gal, she says, well, I'm supposed to feel good now. Okay, so I'm drinking a bottle of wine. That's not the best idea. I'm gonna, do some magic mushrooms. No, that's not really what I'm talking about. Or I'm going shopping. Mm-hmm. You have no money. I have a credit card. No, this is a temporary fix. This is not feeling good now. So there's a distinction there. The other distinction is, if you're feeling really low, you just broke up in a relationship, your dog just got hit by a car, you just lost your job, you just got a lawsuit. Okay, you're probably feeling pretty low. Don't expect to feel good. All you want to do is feel better.
Feel better.
So the idea of feel good now is in steps. It's called a gradient. You just want to feel a little better.
Got it.
And this is why a lot of people don't understand this. If you're feeling depressed, you're effectively catatonic, you're lethargic, you can't move because you're depressed, you're sad. So in order to feel better, you should get angry. Someone says, what? Kevin's telling us to get angry? Yeah, because being angry at least is moving energy, where being depressed and sad is not. So you have to move up the emotional scale.
Got it.
And anger moves energy. There was a great Rocky scene, one of the Rocky movies, one of the 200 Rocky movies that he made. And one of the scenes, I think he was fighting Clubber Lang, Mr. T. And Rocky's in the corner, and Clubber Lang, Mr. T, is beating Rocky senseless. And Rocky's just covering up, getting beaten up. And the guys in the corner are going, Rocky, get out of there, Rocky, get out of there. And he goes, what the hell is he doing? And Paulie says, he's getting mad. And that was it, because in that movie, he had become depressed and lethargic because he was the champ and he had lost his drive and motivation.
Yeah.
And in that scene, it told you the magic of success. He was getting mad. This was going to motivate and inspire him to take action, because he knew what he didn't want. I don't want to be beaten into a pulp. And now I know what I want. I want to beat this guy.
Yeah.
In combat, when you get shot at for the first time, you get scared and you're afraid of getting killed. And the people that survive stop being afraid of getting killed and start desiring to kill the other guy. Mm-hmm. It's a terrible analogy, but General Patton said it best. He says, you never won a war by dying for your country. You win it by getting the other poor dumb bastard to die for his country. So you have to motivate yourself, and you have to be driven to take action with the right attitude. So feeling good now is really feeling better, being self-aware of how you're feeling, not denying it, actually acknowledging it. I feel like crap. I feel depressed. Don't deny it. Don't stick your head in the sand. Don't lie. Acknowledge it. And nextly, don't resist it. What you resist persists. Welcome it. Good. I feel terrible. I feel low. And then transmute that energy, and with will, move it. Just go up a little bit. Feel a little better. This is taking charge, being a cause over your environment instead of being a victim and being at effect from your environment.
It's funny. A lot of the manifestation, we'll wrap up in a second, but a lot of the manifestation people gurus out there, a lot of the self-help, personal development, like you said, I love Tony Robbins' work, but one of the things that I think, is so effective is maybe experiencing the pain. Like if it's right before bed and I eat, 2 things of ice cream and I don't want to eat that, me waking up the next day and just being like, man, I feel great, and trying to live in that delusion, well, I'm probably going to do the same thing the next night. And when you compound those bad behaviors because you didn't, facilitate the negative energy, you didn't feel it, you didn't take it in, you didn't process it. And I think so many people on the manifestation thing, they're just like, oh, I just have to feel good. I have to be positive. Everything's always going to work out. It's like, sure, that, at some point, but like they still need to process that or get angry with the situation or experience the depression. Otherwise, it's just like this emotional hangover that never leaves them, that stops them from really ever achieving anything until it gets to a maximum point where they just crumble.
You're 100% correct. When I learned this in the Brotherhood, we were taught in lecture, written material, but one of the major ways we were taught this material was to go into homes of multi-billionaires. This is back in the 70s and 80s. And I would live there as a fly on the wall for sometimes 1 or 2 days, sometimes with one other person, sometimes 3. But generally it was me. And I would observe. I couldn't talk. I was a fly on the wall. And I would observe this guy who's a billionaire go through his day. And I would observe and I would write notes all day. I couldn't talk, couldn't ask questions. I was a fly on the wall. I didn't exist. And I would learn. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is how you apply it. People do that for me now. I offer a fly in the wall in one of my mansions. People come in and they live with me for 24 hours. And I do give them a little bit of a running commentary of what I'm doing and why. And at the end, I allow them to ask questions. But one of the things that people are blown away is they go, the number of times you go through that cycle, which is you get pissed off, like I get some numbers and I start pounding my fist. I call up Dustin or something. What the hell's going on with these numbers? I gotta contract energy.
Yeah.
Now I'm not, there's not an irrational and uncontrollable emotion. I'm in complete control of this. I'm choosing to move energy and I'm choosing to exhibit this anger and frustration, and I'm not gonna put up with this anymore. I'm doing it on purpose with deliberate intent. But the number of times I do that and then say, this is where we're going, and then clearly define what I want with enthusiasm, with a huge amount of deliberate intent, a huge amount of energy, then I see myself in possession of it, and I feel now as if it was there, and now I'm glowing.
Yeah.
And then release attachment to the outcome by saying, but if it never happens, it's perfectly okay. And then hang up the phone and we're all happy. But they said the number of times you do that on various things was mind-boggling. I do it all day long, sometimes 10 times in a day. And that's what people miss. So I am feeling good. So I'm not living in the past, and I'm not delusional and living in a dream world. I'm not living in the future. I'm living in the now. But I visit the past. I visit what I don't want. And I visit what I do want. But then I live in the now with the feeling of already in attainment of what I desire. But I still had to visit the past and contract that energy for a minute or two. So throughout the day, I don't feel good 24/7. For many minutes, I feel angry and pissed off and terrible because that's the only way to contract the energy. But I don't live there. I visit there. We're driven to avoid pain more than we're driven to attain pleasure. So we have to make sure we know what we don't want. So I visit that. I visit the future, but I live in the present feeling as if I was in attainment of what I desire. That's how I feel good most of the time. But when I don't deny it. I acknowledge it. I don't resist it. I embrace it. And then I use it to my advantage to clearly define what I want and then move the energy with deliberate intent. And that's exactly what I teach in here. It's a very simple method that you just have to use a few times and then you start getting in the habit of it. Words are one of those things. How do you use words properly to work to your advantage? You're hung by the tongue. You're snared by the words of your mouth. What you say is what you get.
Yeah. Well, so if somebody wants, to get access to the book or the audios, how can they learn more? How can they kind of enter your world?
I think there's a click button on the screen. People can click the link there. It'll take them to a page. They can get some more information. They can buy the book, the hardcover book. They also have the ability, if they want, to get the audios as well. That's there as an option as well.
Great. And yeah, I would just say, as a personal testimonial, right? As somebody who's had it in relationships, finances, general experiences, right? From 6 months ago to today, out of all the money I've spent on personal development, out of all the courses that I've tried, out of all the people that I've talked to, if you want a proven process that's step by step, this book lays it out in a way that's tangible, it's attainable, it's digestible, it's actually, enjoyable to read, and the audio is pretty funny to listen to. It's fun to listen to. You get a ton of, it's almost like every time that I would have a question in the book, you were right there with the commentary. So yeah, I would definitely recommend, clicking below, finding out more information about entering Kevin's world and going from there.
Fantastic.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.